Welcome back to Juice's Arthropods. My name is Juice, and today we're going to discuss the Caribena versicolor, or the Antilles Pinktoe tarantula. Let's address the pink elephant in the room. Is that a word? That's an expression, right? Absolutely. We're going to go with it. 7 months is how long it has been since the last time we have done one of these. Many changes at the company recently. It has been 7 months, and by no means did we want to wait that long to get out new videos to you. But we identified a challenge. Our website had been hitting pretty hard. We rolled out a bunch of new products, including our Royal Soil, that became extremely popular. And we had signed up for 15 expos and 3 pop-ups for the year. If you've never done an expo, they take 4 to 5 days to prepare, which basically means every 2 to 3 weeks, we were having to take everything down, move it into bins, and then traverse the entire side of California to get there. We met a lot of friends along the way. We identified a lot of venues we'll never work it again, but we did identify one thing that I think is very, very important to you guys. We will never do that many expos ever again. It was great. I loved meeting half of you, and then I just don't ever want to do it. It's too much work at the end of the day. And it's really not worth it because you guys have been so fantastic this entire time that we don't really need to anymore. Everything is done online, and that allows me more time to make you guys content, pros and cons and care guides. We're going to be doing a lot of tarantulas this year. We're finally going to discuss beetles this year. We're going to get more in-depth with millipedes this year. And holy crap, so many more spiders. So let's get into it. Today, we're going to talk about the Caribena versicolor, or Antilles Pinktoe, the pros, the cons, and the care guide. Let's just address first the name Caribena versicolor, which is weird because it's in the Caribbean, but they're calling it Caribena. If you know anything about why, please let me know in the comments because I genuinely do not know why. One important note, these used to be called, to all of you old head tarantula people who are probably going to be arguing with me in the comments, they used to be called Avicularia versicolor. This is an important distinction, and we'll explain why this actually plays into a lot of challenges have with the species later on, is that Avicularia name changed in 2017 over to Caribena versicolor. This particular spider's distribution range is found in one place only. It is specifically Martinique. It's an island north of St. Lucia, northwest of Barbados. I am sure you will find them in other locations if you go on iNaturalist. That is just because a lot of those islands, there are a lot of ships that travel through them. I guarantee you will find them in other places, but their actual natural habitat specifically is Martinique. This is why they are sometimes also referred to as the Martinique red tree spider. Why are they called red when half the time they're pink? I don't know. Common names are stupid, people. This is why I use Caribena versicolor. So let's get into diet. Most spiders, by the time you have the ability to purchase them online or at a pet store or what have you, they're at least I2. So for all of our Caribena versicolors, because these little babies are typically about 1/4 of an inch, we will start them off on right before medium red runner roaches. We also give them small, medium, or large black soldier fly larvae during their early stage. Occasionally, we'll give them small dubia roaches. They can also eat 2-week crickets, 4-week crickets. By the time they're fully grown, you can give them the 6-week crickets, waxworms, I mean, you name it. Anything commercially available, you will be able to feed these guys. Now, one thing of note, I really particularly love to give them any kind of worm that becomes a flying insect at the end of the day. So, for instance, black soldier fly larvae, hugely popular with these guys because they will eat the larva, which is obviously great for the proteins, the fats they need during their developmental stage, as well as waxworms. Now, be careful with waxworms. They are very fatty. So I will give a waxworm typically about 5 days after they've molted. I'll give them one waxworm, gets them nice and plump again, but also gives them a lot of hydration. As they get larger, I often recommend hornworms when they do get to a stage where they can take a hornworm. Again, this will be an adult size, but hornworms, silkworms, any of the worm family typically does really good for hydration post-molt. But otherwise, can feel free to give them any kind of commercial feeder. Now, there will never be a scenario where you really need to give them any kind of fruit flies. They're really just not enough protein or enough fats for the end of the day. So I would stick with your, crickets, roaches, worms, that sort of thing. But they'll all do just fine. The Caribena versicolor is, while I would not consider it a fast-growing species, it is by no means a slow-moving species or growing species at the same time. So, for instance, an enclosure I would recommend minimum for an adult would be a 12-inch by 12-inch by 12-inch. You can go 18, you can go, sky's the limit. Our arboreal larges that we have, the 12 by 12 by 12s that you can actually see here, they work perfectly. I've got an adult female in there. You know what she does? She stays in her little, I don't know if you guys can see it. She has her little area of webbing up here. She will stay in that 99% of the time. The nice thing about having them with a little bit of height at the end of the day, due to this being an arboreal enclosure, is it does allow them to obviously go hunt naturally. It also has the added benefit of allowing them, which will become important later, of being able to regulate their own humidity and regulate their own temperatures. So I would go larger over shorter. For an adult, I wouldn't do anything less than 12 inches at the end of the day for a height. And otherwise, just make sure that you have something that has plenty of ventilation. Again, we're going to get into this in humidity. So tall, plenty of humidity, plenty of ventilation at the end of the day. And then you can add plants if you'd like to. Now, one thing of note, again, we're going to get back to this in humidity. You need a plant that does not require excessive amounts of water. That is counterintuitive of a lot of things that you're going to see online, but it will all make sense as soon as we talk about next, humidity. You remember how earlier I mentioned that they used to be called Caribena versicolor? This has caused some serious friction on the care of this particular species. If you know anything about Avicularia, what typically happens with, say, the Avicularia, is they are what I call more moisture-dependent species. Now, you will sometimes hear people use words, say, things like high humidity species. We like to avoid saying that, and the reason for that is because just because something has high humidity in a location that they're from, it does not mean that they are thriving in said humidity. The Caribena versicolor is a perfect example of that. If you look at 100 photos on iNaturalist, you will find that 99% of them, they are evading humidity by either going way, way, way up in the trees or way, way, way down below to avoid this at the end of the day. Where they are from in Martinique, they have very high temperatures, high humidity, but they have a significant amount of breeze blowing through it. This blows this humidity away. So when we talk about humidity, you will first panic, will I have enough humidity with these guys? To which I say, yes. It is better for their enclosure to be bone dry temporarily than for it to be wet. Wetness / high humidity, basically if you look at your tank and it looks like it's wet, it is going to kill your Caribena versicolor. These particular species do not like and do not thrive in wet environments at the end of the day. You just need to be very careful of this. So what we do to prevent that is for our slings, we will give them a water dish, which you can't see it, but we have a petri dish we use as her water dish that sits right in her web. We fill that up once a week, and we give a light misting on the corner, just hitting the web a little bit, but not inside of her web. We want her to get to choose when and how she drinks. One key that is important to all of this is to note that misting is water now, a water dish is water whenever they need it. And oftentimes when a spider needs water, it is not when it is convenient for you. So with the Caribena versicolor, to ensure that you do not kill them from too much humidity, just mist once a week if you live in a place that the humidity is 50% or less to 50 to say 60%. Now, if you live in Florida, you're going to have your own problems. And at that point, you're on your own. I don't know how to help you in this scenario. I can only help you if you live in places that have middle to less humidity. If you live in Arizona, miss them maybe twice as much. If you live in California, Once a week, let the soil dry out, then give them a good soak. Otherwise, leave it the hell alone, don't touch it, and just give them a water dish. It is okay to miss once a week thoroughly, then don't do it again. If your enclosure looks soaked or wet, it will kill your spider. I realize that's a lot of information. So, in short, mist once a week, give them a water dish, and then leave them be. If you soak them too often or you give them too much wet soil, it will just murk your spider. Remember, humidity comes from the soil and goes up. This is an arboreal tarantula. So where do you think the humidity goes? It goes right up into their face. So that's where also the height of your enclosure is going to ultimately be beneficial. The other benefit, and we're going to talk more about this in the cons, with this spider, it's crucial that, remember how I said the water dish is right here? You have to give these adorable little idiots a water dish on the x-axis, meaning the horizontal line at which they put their actual hidey spot, right? They're not very apt to going to the ground to drink from their water dish. So whatever you do, find a way to connect your water dish to the same level of plane that they're on the x-axis, so that way they have ample water. Because having good access to water and not over-humidifying them is the easiest way to make this a very simple, very user-friendly spider. Talk about longevity. When people normally get the Caribena versicolor, it is normally within the first tarantulas that they purchase. Now, when you're a new keeper, you typically go for the New World tarantulas. So normally with your starter Pokemon, so to speak, there's a lot of options where you normally get the Grammostola pulchripes, the Aphonopelmas, the Brachypelma humoris, or Brachypelma of any kind. The challenge with these species is that they live very, very long. We're talking 30 plus years on average. Grammostolas being the shorter of those, normally living 20 plus years. Caribena versicolor is a species that typically lives much shorter, which can be extremely useful for a new keeper who, while they're 20 years old, might not want to have a commitment that will last until they're in their 50s. So Caribena versicolors males only live 3 years. The females will live 12 to 15 years, which, while that is still a very, very, very long time for a spider, it is much shorter than some of the more starter spiders that you might be purchasing. So I highly recommend the Caribena versicolor for somebody that wants it to be for a long time, but not a, oh my God, will I still like this spider when I'm in my late 60s? When it comes to fecundity, if you don't want tarantula babies, there's two very easy options. Don't breed them, and two, don't buy them wild caught. That's going to make your life much easier. For if you do decide to breed them, however, it is very complicated to get a definitive number of how many babies they have. So I'm going to make your life easier. Between 50 to 150. I know, that's a huge number at the end of the day. However, I have seen as high as 200. I have seen as low as only 40. One thing to note is a lot of times when people are giving these numbers, they're telling you how many survive. Tarantulas on average, in the wild, do not expect all of their babies to survive. But breeders such as myself are normally trying to make 100% efficiencies. We're trying to do everything we can to maximize the number of babies we have, because obviously when you're a business, having more spiders is good. So 50 to 150 is a good range. So if you're trying to breed them, I would probably lower your expectations to 50, and everything else is just awesome. Let's talk about the pros. Yeah, let's go. Finally, Juice gets to be himself. I don't have to worry about pesky knowledge. I can give you opinions. And I got opinions for days. First and foremost, no kicking, urticating hairs. Can we do a little thing where we add into this scene just me repeating that again? If so, let's do that here. No urticating hairs. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have them. If they're doing a cute little booty dance, while it's adorable, you're about to itch. but none that can kick off in your face. And anytime I can avoid urticating hairs, oh boy, is that a pro. You're talking to a master of taking urticating hairs right to the hands and arms, and I hate it. So, no urticating hairs that you need to worry about as long as you're not trying to pet them. And if you're trying to pet them, you're an idiot. Next pro, we're talking about they are beautiful. Like, absolutely gorgeous. Not a single person who takes a look at the spider goes, oh, that's not a pretty spider. You're dumb if you think it's an ugly spider. It's either maroonish, bluish, greenish color if it's a female, and you're talking a bright pink color, bluish, greenish, I don't know, I can't see the colors that well, if it's a male. They are gorgeous whether male or female, so you don't have to worry about like, well, I hope it's female and I hope it's a male, but I like the color. You don't have to worry about that. They're both dope and awesome looking. Backflips. Do you like backflips? Do you want to see a spider do a backflip? Of course you do. Why would you not? It's incredible. It does have a con, though. The con is, we'll get into that later. Let's see. What else is there? Size. Size? Medium-sized spider. We're not talking about something so big that you got to hold it with two hands. We're not talking about something that if you are holding it, which later on you'll find out, you will. You're not talking about something that if you are holding it is going to absolutely dominate the size. You're not going to be worried about it. It doesn't trigger any of that big spider anxiety that you're going to have for a lot of the other bigger spiders. It is, without a doubt, the most manageable arboreal spider I can even think of. It's just like pocket-sized. It's almost like it wants you to hold it. We'll talk more about that later. How about the fact that they go from the cutest freaking babies on the planet, little tiny blueberries with a cool little tiger stripe pattern, and then become this insanely gorgeous, pinkish, bluish, greenish creature? Like, why? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. There's definitely a scientific reason for it. But how dope is that? It's like you get basically the price for one, you get two spiders. Blue, then dope. It's amazing. Overall, we are talking about a spider that significantly the pros outweigh the cons. But that's not to say that they do not have cons. So let's talk about them. These fuckers do not stay in their enclosure when they're babies. If you buy them as slings, you will 100% get them to escape. And, all right, I want you to imagine a scenario, right? It's feeding day. Now, you may have just got one. That's cool. When it comes out, because it will come out of the cage, they like to explore a little bit, right? Arboreal tarantula, they come out, they like to run around a little bit. That's so awesome. You're having a great time. Now, let's say you have 100 of them, and 45 of them have decided that they're going to go on a little parade. It sucks. It sucks so hard. Now, you might not see this as a con if you only have one. However, imagine if you decided that you wanted to feed somebody or feed these guys, but you have an immediate time constraint afterwards. Throw that goddamned idea out the window. It is going to take you 5 minutes to get them back in there. Every time you guys order these guys, it takes me 10 minutes to get them inside the vial. Why? Because when I try to put them in there, these guys like to go up and they like to wander. So when I put them in the vial, they immediately try to run out of the vial, and it's a fun little game we play where I have to pretend like it's a tree, and then I gotta let them climb up the vial upside down, and then they go all the way to the top, and they go, wait a minute, there's no top here. And then they try to climb right back down. It's a fun game we play every single time. And if you didn't know, this is our top seller on our website, which means at least 5 to 6 times a week, I am getting to play this game. Oftentimes more than 5 or 6 times a week. So that to me, huge con. But for you, it'll be adorable. You'll get to hold your baby that you wanted to hold. Now, to be fair to the Caribena Versicolor, it does eventually grow out of this. You are not going to have to worry about your adult spider trying to play pick-me-up games or anything like that. It will eventually decide it no longer wants to go explore. It wants to just hide and eat. The number one con, and I'm putting it in the middle because it's going to get lengthy, is that humidity aspect. I cannot stress enough, if your tarantula is wet, you will kill it. That is a huge con. Like, this is probably the hardest spider to know what this means. Now, here's the benefit. If you have never bought an avicularia, or any other avicularinae, if you just ignore all other advice that anybody has ever given you about those, and this is your first spider or your first 3 spiders, and all of your other spiders are just not an avicularia, you'll be fine. The problem is, it's kind of like somebody that learns Spanish and then tries to speak Portuguese. It kills them because they're like, that looks so much like Spanish. I'm going to say it like Spanish. It's the same problem with Caribena versicolors. You will run into the issue where you will think you know what you're doing, and you will harm your tarantula, if not kill them. So it's very, very crucial the humidity aspect is followed. But because of the fact it's got this disclaimer that's huge, it is, unfortunately, a huge con. And last but not least, do you love a top opening enclosure? Too bad. All of these little marks you see here are the beautiful webbing she has decided to make her burrow out of, or her little arboreal hammock from, rather. Which means I can't open that lid ever. So if your enclosure is just top opening, guess what? You cannot open it ever. It will become a problem for you. You need to make sure that you have an enclosure that has a front door, a sliding front door, and a top opening door. Otherwise, they're going to just hammock up that door every single time. And I cannot stress, listen, I don't know if you can hear that. I've scared her. It's not strong. Like, it is, you would have to pull that thing every single time. It would become a problem for you. And don't worry, I didn't harm her hammock. I just got to the point where it wouldn't do that. So anyways, last but not least, the con is goodbye to any top opening doors. It is not going to ever work. So in conclusion, if you're looking for a very easy to deal with arboreal tarantula, that with the exception of the humidity issue is overall a 10 out of 10 spider that's easy to hold if that's what you're into, is beautiful colored, will go through growth spurts in terms of, go from blue to pinkish, greenish, purple, or maroon, which is dope as hell. And it's just overall, they make some pretty cool webs. Highly recommend. I mean, this is a great tarantula. That one tiny thing sounds really bad, but every single spider has one tiny thing. So this one, at least, is something that you have direct control over versus sometimes where it's, I never see it ever. Don't worry. You'll see your Caribena versicolor every single day. Sometimes, whether you really want to or not. So once again, Arthro people, stay safe, stay educated, and most importantly, stay classy. Stay smart, but guys, stay classy. Stay fantastic, you big old bunny bitch. In conclusion, stay educated, stay informed, and stay classy, you Arthro people. You Arthro people. You classy groomsmen. You... Fuck that over.